Hey everyone, welcome back. This is
Oh,
Amanda Robbins and me, Jarek Robbins, with some fireworks. No fireworks. Where's my fireworks? Psh, there you go. This week we're talking about emotional intelligence. Specifically, we started off with the introduction, understanding the basics of emotional intelligence. We then hopped on over to navigating emotions, which we did a deep dive live training for our Core 4 community and Performance Coach University on. We talked about emotional regulation strategies, which are so critical and important nowadays. And today we're going to be talking about the role of emotional intelligence in building strong and healthy relationships and the role of emotional intelligence in a coaching practice, specifically performance coaching. How does that work? I'd love to hear what's your insight on why emotional intelligence is so very important when it comes to relationships.
uh, can you start? Actually, I'm trying to get my Instagram to go live.
Sure. Let me
Sorry,
grab,
I think I
so
mixed them up.
I'll grab these point by point. I think number one
Yes.
is improve communication. So it enhances clarity and understanding in conversations. And this is one of the biggest things. How many of you have ever been having a conversation with someone that lacked clarity or understanding? And I don't know about you, but if I'm in a conversation and you've been trying to express yourself and you're really trying to get a point across and it's just not landing, it's incredibly frustrating. It's really difficult. Oftentimes, it drives people nuts, and they'll just get frustrated and eventually stonewall or give up or walk away. And all it has to do with is both people in that moment aren't tapping into their emotional intelligence. They're not reading the fact that what the person's trying to say is not coming across. And it's like, well, help me understand or help me see this more clearly. Maybe share it with me in another way. Um, Over on Instagram, it says, my husband and I realize we speak two different languages. Partially, that can definitely be a situation. And so, number one, emotional intelligence, the practice of this skill and these tools helps create and foster better and more consistent understanding in conversation and relationships. Number two, this part is really important. So I'm going to toss this in there. Number two is deeper empathy and understanding, fostering greater sense of connection and compassion. And so we're actually teaching this next week in our core four. The topic is relationships. And we're talking about a framework that when you're really frustrated, when you're really upset, when you're really overwhelmed, is there a framework, a structure you can use that if you use that structure, you will actually be able to get what you want in that moment? I oftentimes hear of couples where they're so frustrated and they're so overwhelmed and they're so like, and then they don't want structure. They don't want to follow rules. They just want to explode or blah or yell or scream or leave or do whatever they do when they're totally frustrated. And what's wild is it doesn't work. I've yet to meet a person that uses any of those strategies that actually gets what they want in that moment. Or if they get what they want, it's usually because they've figured out how to manipulate the other person. And eventually they don't even feel attracted to the other person because they can manipulate them. And that kills kind of ugh. And so, literally, like, there's actually a way through emotional intelligence and coaching tools, a framework that you can go through. And when you go through that framework, the message gets across clearly without causing the other person to feel triggered, without pissing them off, without you having to freak out over it. Like, you clearly get what you need across. And not only is there a way to say it, there's a way for the person who's listening to make sure that you feel seen, appreciated, understood, and respected in that moment. There's a way that they can reply back to you that causes you to feel seen, appreciated, understood. I'm seeing the concept of we realize we speak different languages. Well, in that time when you're literally speaking different languages in that moment, This framework can help improve the communication, create deeper empathy and understanding, and cause you all to actually get through to each other in that moment. Number three, talking about conflict, emotional intelligence in relationships helps with empathy, or I'm sorry, enhanced conflict resolution. So enables more effective and constructive handling of disagreements. It's in those moments where you're not agreeing, you're not seeing eye to eye, it isn't working, you're getting frustrated. It'll actually cause you to create a bridge of communication where you can actually align and get back on the same team and move in the right direction. It's really, really powerful. Number fourth benefit, stronger. Let me bring it over here. Boom. Stronger connections builds deeper and more meaningful relationships. So I don't know about you, but if I'm in a relationship where I feel more understood, more appreciated, more loved, more respected, more seen than anywhere else, I don't know where else I'd want to go. There's nowhere on earth someone would want to go if they're feeling loved, seen, appreciated, understood, respected, and so connected in that moment. And so these tools help build that. The final one, and then I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful wife to talk about some of these. The final benefit is increased trust and respect. So cultivating more secure and respectful bonds between individuals. And so my thought is these can clearly help in your personal relationships. This also helps in a coaching relationship if you're having better connections, better communication, increased trust and respect, enable the ability to work through conflict. It helps in a coaching relationship, a personal relationship, a work relationship, just about all of them if you're dealing with another human. Love, what do you think about all this?
Oh, I love it so much. It's a game changer for relationships. An example of this is when there is a couple that, or maybe there is a time where you just kept butting heads and not being in alignment, being in love, like really just butting heads. And if we dissected that a little bit, I'm getting a little bit of feedback on your end. I don't know why. Um, that thanks. Okay. Um, so, so it's critically important. If we can get this right, it means we get to spend so much more time being in love. And that's really one of the main reasons we get into relationships, right? Like, what a great feeling that is. If we don't get it right, we're going to spend more time bickering and arguing and having power struggles in our relationships, that tit for tat game if we get it wrong. If we get it right, we get to be in love and we get to enjoy this life and we get to learn and we get to grow together, right? Now, what is it?
Oh, it looks a little fuzzy.
I don't know why it's fuzzy. I'm having technical difficulties over here, maybe. It
That's
does
okay.
look
Your
fuzzy.
message is crystal clear. Your face is just a little fuzzy.
I don't know why. I'm on. Okay. Anyways, yeah. I don't know why I'm fuzzy. I don't know what to do. Okay, so anyway, I'll just keep. It's one of my favorite topics because it is so liberating. I don't like it is so I feel like when we really focus on emotional intelligence and we do our best to be emotionally intelligent ourselves and help understand others' emotions and where they're at, we get to experience life on such a more like rich, beautiful, just fulfilling level that feels like you're like dancing among the stars. Like, it's so beautiful to be in that, and maybe not all the times. You may not be there all the time, but if you become more emotionally intelligent or more emotionally fit, then when it's not so great, whether you're not having a great day or your partner isn't having a great day or your colleague isn't having a great day, you can then still, instead of getting into the entanglement of the emotions and the whirlwind and the fuss and everything, you can understand where you're at right now and where the other person is at. And so I'm so excited for this next class that we're doing on Tuesday. I invite and encourage all of you to join us. Um, in the Core 4 challenge. It's epic because the way I see people in this community better navigating the crap life throws their way and being able to step into the best and highest version of themselves and still like, feel and experience those emotions of themselves or others, but be able to navigate them in a way that allows them to, again, like, still co-work together or collaborate together, or if it's in a relationship, to be in love together instead of, like, taking it so personal. And I think that this is one of the biggest benefits of emotional intelligence. If you are a person that takes so many things personal and you're quite sensitive, and if your spouse is in a bad mood or your boss is in a bad mood, or had a rough day, or even if you don't even know if they've had a rough day and they're just not talking to you and you're taking that personally, the more we can tap into our emotional intelligence or elevate our emotional intelligence or become a more emotionally intelligently fit and understand it in a way that we can roll with it and not take it personally. It is so freeing because now you don't feel so entangled in whatever everyone else is feeling. You can still empathize with them. You can still be there with them and for them. You can still love them, appreciate them, but you don't take it personally so much so that it truly makes your day now a bad day, right? And I think that is one of the biggest game changers. I remember
There's
hearing this story about some like, let's say in a personal relationship, a spouse coming in the door, and the wife says, honey, did you take out the trash? And as soon as she says that, he kind of flips out about it. And he didn't flip out about the question. It was because there was a series of events that happened before that moment in time, before he even entered the door. Maybe it's a rough day at work. There's so many events that happen that we can't see that cause that. And she's like, what's the big deal? I just asked about I didn't even tell you to take it out. I just asked if you took it out, right? And then she's exploding because she's had this crazy, like this wild day too. And so it creates this like very turbulent experience. But the fact of the matter is, the only thing that happened, if a reporter was reporting on it in that moment, real time, it'd be like, husband walked in, wife asked, did you take out the trash today? And then they both kind of erupted. And the reason why they erupted wasn't because someone asked about the trash. It was because they weren't emotionally fit or intelligent enough to work through the emotions they were feeling before that moment in a way that allowed them to presently just experience the question, right? And not then come unwound because it was the stacking effect that had happened that makes them kind of explode, right? And that's the difference versus coming in the door and having taken time to work through some of those emotions or those events from the day and getting to a place where you are peaceful and calm. And as the partner inside, knowing he just came from, war, like he's just come home. Let this be a loving place where we can just greet each other and pour love into each other. And then eventually we can get to the to-do list, right? And likewise, me coming in the door and greeting them, having decompressed and greeting them in a way that allows um, to acknowledge and appreciate and to love whatever they've been through that day. How was your day? What's like catching up together and really pouring love into each other because you've already poured that love and that peace and that groundedness into yourself, right? You're not coming with a stack of emotions that the second someone asks the questions, it comes unraveled. So anyway, that's the difference. And from there, if we can be more emotionally intelligent, then those little questions we're able to just observe and not take personally as if, oh, another thing I need to do, or another thing I forgot, or another thing she's pointing out that I didn't do. You know what I mean? Or criticism or whatever, instead of just acknowledging. And again, if there's a tone with it, instead of reacting to the tone, we can acknowledge, oh, that's not the best, most loving tone. I wonder what's going on in their day. So we get more curious about ourselves and each other, um, to be more empathetic and loving and understanding in that moment. Yes, you're making so many funny faces. What?
Let me throw something in there. So there was a post over here, whoop, right there. It says every man knows when a woman asks, "Did you take out the trash?" It isn't really a question; it's an accusation that you can't do something so simple that's been asked so many times. And what's interesting about this concept, I'm going to start with the very first line. Every man knows. Let's just start with that real quick. Let's unpack this. So, the concept of, let me ask you, if you're a man out there, what were you taught about emotions growing up? Whoever sat you down and said, "Hey, you're a guy. You're going to feel lots of emotions in your life. And as you feel different emotions, let's talk through the options of how you can deal with them. You know, what are all the ways you can deal with big emotions that come up in your life?" And so as guys, if you can think back to being a little kid or teenager, I'm going to ask two questions. Number one, who sat you down to talk about emotions? And two, what options did they help present you of how to navigate big emotions? I'm seeing our friend, the trauma translator, said that hiding emotions is masculine. So that's something that he might have been taught when he was younger. As men, let me ask you so real quick, who was it? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your uncle, your cousin? Who sat you down to talk about big emotions, and what options did they help you learn on how to navigate some of these emotions? From most people I've worked with, I've learned two things. One, nobody sat us down to talk about big emotions. And two, they didn't offer any clear suggestions, strategies, or tools on how to navigate big emotions. And so, if we have a world filled with people, and I'm just dealing with guys right now, if we have a bunch of guys who've never been taught how to, one, experience big emotions, and two, what to do with them when you feel them, how in the world are we going to figure that out? Well, we generally just observe other people, and then you go back and you observe a bunch of other people who've never been sat down and educated on how to navigate big emotions and options of what to do with them when they come up. And so, what's really interesting about that, all of a sudden, he said, "No one told me anything. I just learned to avoid or try to control others emotionally." Exactly. Now, let me ask you, love, as
Yeah.
women, who sat women down and said, "Hey, we're going to feel lots of big emotions in our life. And here's 3 tools on what to do when you feel really big emotions. Here's how to navigate big emotions in your life." You could use breath work. You could use meditation. You could use physical exercise. You could use journaling. Who sat women down? Do moms sit women down? Does sisters or aunts or grandmas or uncles or dads, does anyone sit women down and say, "Hey, you're going to feel really big emotions throughout your life, and here's 3 different tools you can use to navigate these big emotions very effectively now as a teenager and all throughout your life"? Did anyone do that for you?
No, and for women, if you have big
Yeah.
emotions, then you're crazy and you probably have a mental illness for women.
Yeah, you're crazy, a mental illness, it's your hormones. Like, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff it's blamed on. So, wait a second. You're telling me that no one sat down us guys to talk about big emotions and give us strategies or options of how to navigate them effectively. No one sat down women to talk about big emotions and figure out how to navigate these. How the hell are we supposed to figure this out? No one's talking about it.
Core 4 challenge.
Simply the best you, Susie says, "I'm in my 60s and nobody set me down." I think that's changing though. My daughters are working with their kids on breath work and stuff. Exactly. So we're starting to learn this is important. And let me ask you, who, which of us have to deal with big emotions every day? All of us. All of us have to deal with big emotions in our life. And so, if all of us have to deal with big emotions in our life and nobody's sitting us down to communicate and talk through this effectively, we're kind of not setting ourselves up to win. I'm seeing this is great advice for parents now to change that cycle. Exactly. And I don't think it's just for parents. I think even if, Susie's in her 60s, or I know people who are in our group who are in their 70s, wouldn't now be the best time to sit down and figure out how to navigate those big emotions? I have family members who are in their 80s who still don't know how to navigate big emotions. And when they get completely overwhelmed, they'll throw stuff or break stuff or yell or stomp down the hallway and slam their door. And I went, no one taught this person how to deal with big emotions. So they're even 80 something years old, and they still haven't figured this out. That's okay. Let's help them figure it out. And people look at that and they label it or blame or call them a name or all these different things. And the key is no. Hey, what I'm observing, what Amanda said, if you were a reporter on the scene observing what's happening, is like, I'm observing a grown adult who no one has ever sat down and helped figure out how to communicate big emotions. Okay, cool. Why don't we go help them? Why don't we go sit down with them and say, hey, it looks like you're feeling some really big emotions. This is something my wife says to my son all the time. But it looks like you're feeling some really big emotions right now. Why don't we think about a way that we can work through it? We're not going to run from it. We're not going to ignore it. We're not going to lash out. Why don't we find a way to work through it? I saw him the other day where he lost our son, he's 3.5. He lost his temper and he yelled and he came upstairs and he sat on the top step. And I said, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm really mad. So I yelled. And I said, okay, here's a question. When you get really mad, what are your choices? And he kind of looked at me funny. And I said, what are your choices? When you're really mad, like, what are your choices? And he said, I guess I could yell. I said, sure, you could yell. That's a choice. I said, what if you learned how to take 3 big breaths? I said, are you still mad right now? He said, I am mad. I said, okay, here, watch this. Let's do 3 big breaths together. All the way in. Hold it. And I said, tense. Give me the mad face. And he went, and I would let it out. Let's do it again. And we did it 3 times. I said, how do you feel now? And he says, not as mad. And I said, okay, maybe you should go say sorry to mom for yelling. And he went back downstairs. He goes, sorry, mom. I was really mad. And there you go. And I was sitting when he was looking the other way. I was going like this towards my wife. And I was like, this is important. He's a little guy. He needs to figure out, little human. They need to figure out how to effectively manage big emotions. We call this emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize the fact that you're having a big emotion and then pick a strategy of how you're going to work through it effectively, usefully. I remember I was pulling out of a laundromat in Pacific Beach, California. And it's a one-way alley coming off the main road into the alley. And you have to go one direction and then go around. And this lady was coming out going the wrong way down a one-way alley. I had just pulled off the road and I stopped and she came bumper to bumper with me facing 2 cars. And I said, hey, you're going the wrong way. Like, read the sign. And she said, move. And I said, hey, you're going the wrong way. And she's like, move your car. I was like, I can't move. If I back up, I'm in the middle of traffic. I can't do that. And so I pulled my car as far as I could to the side, and she slowly crept by. And as she got to my window to window, she leaned in, tapped on my window, and then flipped me off and yelled, F you, and drove away. And I was like, wow. That's the best that human knows. And she was probably a 55, 60-year-old woman. And I said, that's the best she's been trained on how to deal with emotions in her life? Golly. And she has to live with herself all day long. That would suck. I mean, it's one thing having to cross paths with someone like that for 5 minutes or 2 minutes of your day. It's another thing to have to be the human living in her own body where she treats herself like that all day long. That would suck.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I said, man, I wonder how her life would be different if she learned a few emotional intelligence techniques, some coaching tools that could help her find a better place in her own life. It'd be very interesting. Okay. Love, I think we have a couple of minutes and both of us have to jump for a call. They were asking, what's Amanda doing here? Listening?
I
I said,
know.
no, we're passing the talking stick back and forth.
I think that's so funny. I am sometimes I interrupt him, and today I did not. So thank you for acknowledging. I was listening, and I was listening very well. Um, all right, and obviously you missed my monologue. I'm sorry you missed that. What else? I one thing I found really interesting from this conversation today is, and I don't know what's going on and why I'm so pixelated. So sorry about that. It's probably why I'm also being a little quiet. I found that word accusational like really sticking with me.
Yeah.
A comment mentioned earlier over someone asking a question and the generalization of every man. I'm so glad you tackled that. And the other part being accusational. And I just thought, wow, like, yes, if you are not emotionally intelligent and fit, you would assume that that is accusational and you would take that personally and you would hear that as a criticism. You would, because you haven't done the work to actually, one, listen. There was no accusation in it. And two, just like, I think for you and I hope I can say this, and I really hope that we're on the same page here, which is if I said, hey, did you clean up the kitchen? Which you tend to do every night because I cook and I help get Coda about it and usually clean up the kitchen. Thank goodness. And you're so dang good at it. And when I ask that, it's because we're a team,
Yeah.
right? It's because we're a team. And if you didn't do it, I'm going to get after it, right?
Yeah.
And if you didn't do it, I know it's because it wasn't intentional. It's because you probably had something else to do that's helping love on us or take care of us or take care of yourself or whatever you need to do. But it was never accusational, right? It was just a check-in. Like, hey, we're a team. These are the boxes we need to check for today. Okay, I have to go for a call too. Oh, I do have to go. I realize it was one already. Okay. Anyway, so I want let that be one of the takeaways is what meaning are we giving
Where's my heart?
the questions or what meaning are we adding to it? Okay. I love you. This has been great.
I was
Little
trying to
long.
get confetti and hearts over here. Anyways,
See that.
have a good day,
See that.
everyone.
Okay. Bye.